Call this meeting to order with 4 members present. More may be coming.
I'm sorry I'm late. Shit.
Are we doing the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes,
Bob?
and as we always do, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could all stand with me and face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Board members, you were sent an agenda. Assume that you've read it. There is one change, well, 4 changes. We're going to delete items 701, 702.
No, 702.
702 through
I'm sorry, 702, yes, I'm sorry.
4.
702, 703, 704, 705, because Greg can't get the rate we want yet. I know he's working on it, but I appreciate it.
Yes.
So we will approve the agenda as sent out to you with those items deleted. Is that all right? Somebody
Yes.
like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved?
Susan and I can both move.
You guys are going to have to do a lot of moving and seconding.
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded. We adopt the agenda. All those in favor raise your right hand. Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or discussion about any of that?
No.
If not, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor raise your right hand. Again, 4-0. Thank you. And we have nobody signed up to speak from the public, but we did invite Greg Varenberg here to talk to us a little bit about bond financing. And if you have a second, could you address the Sarah to Dias?
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the chance to be here this evening, and you're right. At one point, we thought there was a possibility where this could all come together, where we'd have the interest rate for you this evening, and I would be potentially presenting that, which would require the board to consider the bond resolution. But what has happened since the last board meeting, as we shared with you at that meeting, our next step was to work with the rating agencies and have a bond rating assigned to the district's issue, and then pull together the offering memorandum, which is the document that we share with potential investors. And pleased to report that we did move forward after the April 27th board meeting. We had the offering memorandum completed and distributed to our sales force to share with investors. We also worked with the 2 rating agencies, Moody's and Fitch Investors. The district had worked with Moody's in the past, and so pleased to report that we went through the rating process with Moody's. No change in the district's rating. They affirmed the A1 rating of the district, and that's a very solid bond rating, and you should be very proud of that. But also, given the size of this issue, we felt that having a second bond rating could be beneficial to the district. And the bond rating is a reflection of the financial condition and creditworthiness of the district from the eyes of the rating agency, and helps give bond investors comfort in regards to the security related to the repayment of the bonds and the financial condition of the district. And so we worked with Fitch to have a rating assigned to the district, and ended up with an A+ rating. A+ and A1 are both at the upper end of the A category, and so it's the highest level in that A category. And so that's a solid bond rating from both rating agencies, and I think that having both rating agencies coming out in the same category is also providing some comfort to bond investors. We had the Moody's rating released last Monday, and Fitch released their rating on Wednesday. And so we knew that it was a fairly quick turnaround, but we knew that there was a possibility that we could potentially be in the market on Thursday, and had worked with our trading desk and our sales force to be ready in case it made sense to do so. And during that time, since the last board meeting, as we were pulling this information together, we've been watching the bond market and interest rates, and there has been a little bit of volatility and some pressure on interest rates. Thursday, it felt like it was a challenge in the bond market. We felt that if we were to jump into the market where there's a period where interest rates are drifting upwards, if you don't have your anchor investors kind of in hand, know you're going to have a solid amount of orders before you open up that order period, you oftentimes can end up chasing investors. And there's been an increase in supply in the bond market. in recent weeks, in large part due to the very low interest rates that we're dealing with. And so if you're in the bond market and you're trying to attract investors to your issue, one of the ways to do that is to raise interest rates or have a higher yield to attract them to your issue. And we knew that wasn't part of the goal of the plan of the finance. So we gave the update to the district administration, recommended that we hold off on Thursday, and the employment report was coming out on Friday in terms of the economic statistics. And so actually the report came out, not much of a change in terms of the expectation of what was to be released, and the bond market rallied a little bit on Friday, excuse me. And so actually felt pretty good about the bond market over the weekend, and thought that we'd have some stability going into today, and Treasury market had rallied, and the municipal bond market tends to follow. But this morning we saw a pretty quick reversal in terms of the interest rates. Treasury rates went right back up to where we were Thursday, and so we watched throughout the morning, but then contacted the district and informed the district that it just didn't feel like today was the right day as well. And obviously our hope was that we'd have favorable rates, get this all locked in, could bring good news to you this evening. But I think with a little bit of patience, we can have a better bond market and a better result on your bond sale. And rather than push it into the market and end up with a worse result than what we were hoping for, I'd rather pull back, wait for some stability, and then get this locked in. It could very well be that that happens in a day or two. But the nice thing is we don't have pressure from a timing perspective, because when I think about the goals that we are wanting to achieve on this plan of finance, one, we want to deliver the mill levy that was promised to the voters during the bond election campaign. And we've run some sensitivity analyses to see if rates were to go up, does that start to put pressure on that mill levy? And I think we were conservative in our estimates, and where we stand today, we've got some room to where rates can move a ways before we have any pressure to raise that mill levy above what was represented during the campaign. So I don't feel like that's at risk. And then the other goals were to maximize the amount of money going into the project construction fund, and nothing that has occurred since the last meeting is taking dollars away from that project construction fund. So we'll end up with the full $63,160,000 going into the project construction fund. And then our third goal was to make sure we didn't lose the higher level of state aid. And as I had shared with you at that last meeting, there was some conflicting language in that block grant funding bill that raised the question of, do we need to have not only the bond election occur before July 1, but also the bonds being sold prior to July 1? I still think that, if we get a little bit of stability and at some point here in the next several weeks, we could easily have this issue sold and closed before July 1. And even then, we have been monitoring and are still aware that a fix is being proposed to clean that up in the legislature. And we keep hearing from the State Department of Education that everyone believes that fix will fall in place. So I don't think that we're at risk of losing the higher level of state aid. I don't think we're at risk of jeopardizing dollars going into the project construction fund, and I don't think we're at risk of pushing that mill levy higher than what was represented to voters. It's just we didn't get that locked in on Thursday or today, and we typically try to avoid a bond sale or pricing on a Friday just because it's difficult to get investor attention. So wanted to give you that update this evening. I know we had on the agenda the possibility of having the interest rate set, but appreciate your understanding and patience, and I fully expect we'll have that locked in soon for you. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
One question. If the fix gets through miraculously and signed in the next 2 weeks, would this give us some more flexibility to really look at the market more? Because we wanted to make sure we had that encumbered or contracted obligation. If they get the language fixed, does that give us some more of the flexibility like we talked before?
I think so. And again, I keep thinking back to those goals that I had mentioned, and we wouldn't want to knowingly delay the bond issue till later in the year and then find out now we're getting 28% state aid instead of 45%. When we see that fix go through, that will give us some comfort that concern is gone. But then it still just puts us in that position of making sure we accomplish the other goals. And I really think that getting the interest rate set to where we can lock in that mill levy and making sure we don't take away any dollars for construction, or maybe the two bigger goals. I do feel like that state aid will get fixed, especially after hearing from the State Department of Education. But we obviously don't want to ignore that until we know for sure that nothing will jeopardize your level of state aid.
And then with China moving their interest rates down, does that help our bond market any?
There's so many factors that are impacting the U.S. bond market these days, and even in recent years. I mean, you look at China and you look at Europe, and there are changes in interest rates there, or just the economies in some of those foreign countries are impacting our economy, and our interest rates are in large part impacted by the economy, and that's why a lot of the investors we were talking to on Thursday said that they were holding off to wait and see what the employment numbers did on Friday before they would make any investment decision. And those numbers, actually there was a release on Thursday and the larger release on Friday, and both of those were favorable for the U.S. bond market, and we actually saw some momentum. And it's really difficult to say today what drove interest rates back up. We kind of lost what we gained on those last 2 days, and I think it's things like you mentioned. Other countries are now impacting our interest rates more than we've seen in recent years. But,
Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Amy Wormington, did you guys have school at Garfield this year?
Yes, we did.
Good darn deal. Let's hear about it.
Very active.
Is this your last presentation for us?
Ouch. Yes, this is.
All right, good luck on your new adventure with your new school.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your service here at USD 290. We will miss you and wish you the best on your ventures.
I appreciate that. Oh, thank you. And I feel very fortunate to have been part of Ottawa USD 290 and to be a part of the kids. That's the hardest part about making a change. Change is good. I think you learn and grow a lot from change, but it's always leaving the relationships that you've built and being able to see the kids through and the growth that they've already made. I wish I would have had a video of our kindergartners the first day of school or the first week of school, and then to be able to show you them now. Completely different children. And it warms my heart to see that amount of growth and learning that happens. And that's a yearly thing. That's not just, but this year in particular, we had lots of challenges with our kindergartners. Someone likened them to herding cats. And that's not to put anything, say anything bad about our kiddos, but they simply were very active and had a very difficult time taking direction. And to see what our kindergarten teachers have, and the other special teachers have done with our kids is truly wonderful. And to know that then that learning just continues. So yes, lots of exciting things that have happened at Garfield. And today we had our field day. And so this is not what I wore to field day, but had a beautiful day. We were so lucky to have the weather, and the kids all had a really great time with that. Okay, so I just hit the, thank you. Everything that we do at Garfield is driven by our mission and our vision statement. Our vision statement we actually say every single morning as part of our morning assembly. And when I first came to Garfield, I was not so sure about that practice to start all off in the gym together. And it turned out to be a very positive time for me to be able to see each and every one of the faces. And when you walk into the gym and kids have already started to gather and a few teachers are in there supervising, you can feel the energy level in the room. So it kind of gives you a dipstick as to what the day's going to be like. And it's a great opportunity for me to set the stage for, we are here for learning. This is your job. We take it very seriously, and here are the things we need to do so that you can be successful at your job. And one of the things that we do is that we make sure we say our vision statement every day and have some type of message that goes along with that. So just a few pictures from our year. Our data is not all in. When you look at the amount of testing that we do with our children, our grade levels through 3, 4, and 5 this year had 13 sections of testing to do. That's some of those with our state tests we were able to combine into one testing time, but between our state tests and the performance tests that they have now, and then our MAP tests, that's a lot of testing that happens. So what I have shared with you is what I have available. What we have available at this time. Our MAP window is not closed, so we're not able to see the colored charts that we had last year for our whole building and for the district. So what we looked at with our building as a PLC just last Wednesday was to look at where we were as far as each grade. And what I have here is the score, how we scored in our last spring, 2014, and this spring. And the one I sent to you, it doesn't show up on here, but there were highlighted windows to be able to show, we wanted to look at those students and track them. So for instance, the kids in second grade, how they did in spring 2014, how they did now in third grade in 2015. And we noticed that our scores are very consistent. There was not a whole lot of movement as far as moving more kids up from that lower level, lower percentile up into our low average and moving on up the scale. So that's one of the things that consistent is better than decreasing, but that's a continued conversation that we have as a staff, is how do we move those kids up from that low area up into our low average area. A couple of the things that the teachers that we talked about as a group that we will continue, that Garfield will continue to look at, is that we stop EL time, our extended learning time, which is our tier 2 time during testing, just because we don't have the support staff to be able to continue that. And that we feel like really makes a difference, because our kiddos aren't, those kids who are in that low and low average area are not getting that extra 30 minutes of intensive instruction during that testing time. So we have to look at how can we test smarter as far as utilizing our support staff in order to continue with those interventions during that testing time. The other thing we discussed is looking at continuing more professional development for instructional reading strategies. It's very important that we continue improving in that area of making sure that our learning, every moment of our day is maximized in learning. So that's another area that we'll continue to look at. What we have done this year is to use more of the triangulating data for reading. So the graph on the right is just a little snapshot of a grade level group that we put together. Our CBM and our MAIS are the scores that we obtain from our Ames Web, which is our universal screener, to determine whether which students need more intensive support. Then our MAP is we look at the percentile that each student has received with MAP. And then we look at all of that data together in order to make sure that we're doing what's best for our students instructionally. So interestingly enough, when you look at the MAP percentiles overall with our kiddos 2nd through 5th grade, and then you look at their other data at their Ames Web, 50% of our kids who are yellow okay, let me explain the colors first. Red is needs most intensive support, so that's the lower percentiles. Yellow means they need supplemental support, means they're still needing support, but they're moving in the right direction. Green, light green, means, we call it scary green, meaning they could easily slip down to yellow, and we don't want them to do that. So, but they're getting close to meeting standard. Green means they meet benchmark. Blue and white means they're above benchmark. So those kiddos who are on the MAP scoring at the yellow or red or below benchmark or below meeting standards, when we look at their Ames Web, they're above, or their meeting standards are above. which tells us, okay, they understand, they have the foundation of reading. We now have to focus more on some of those specific comprehension skills that they may be missing. So that's how we can then look to make sure that when they are grouped for that intervention time, that extended learning time, or for their Tier 3 time, that we are making sure that we're addressing the needs that those students have for their comprehension, as opposed to continuing with more fluency type skills. And then this is also, I just put in here, this was one of our advanced ed goals that we had, so that we continue to work on. So the triangulating data has been very helpful for us this year in our grouping. Our math successes are very similar as far as they are being consistent. We were very excited, actually, that the decrease was very small despite our transition to My Math. One of the things that was very apparent was that the pacing, the way My Math is laid out, there were a lot of areas that the kids tested before they actually were taught. So that has actually already been addressed. Brad Carlson and Shannon have worked on creating the pacing that will help to address those areas that kids would get, that learning would happen after that testing takes place, to be able to have snippets throughout the year to make sure that we're not necessarily rearranging the pacing, but making sure that kids have access to that knowledge before they're tested on that. MobiMax, we continue to utilize a lot more of our teachers and students were utilizing this this year than last year. We had 212 students using this. We had a significant increase in the amount of standards that they passed using MobiMax and the lessons and problems. So you can see that the kids had over 140,000 problems that were solved this year using MobiMax. Our fifth grade had a competition as to who could, receive the most minutes, I believe, or the most problems to pass. So it was very highly motivating for them, and it's a great intervention and practice for them at their level of what the MobiMax puts them at their level of where their math skills are. Our family and community involvement, we continued with our conferences are very highly attended, which is great. If we've struggled with our PTA attendance, but if you talk about which you would rather have a parent attendance at, PTA meetings or at conferences, you definitely want them at their conferences. So shows that our parents are very invested in their students' learning, and we appreciate that. Our watchdogs, we continued this year. We didn't have as many watchdogs this year, but we still covered 94 times. Last year, I think we had over 100 times. We had about 20 less dads or grandpas or uncles or friends as representing each of our students, but within those 33 dads, grandpas and uncles, that we covered a lot of time there, and the kids just love having the watchdogs. And it's really great to have that added influence in our school. It's a very positive influence. We continue to have a lot of Ottawa University practicum students and team volunteers. We have baseball players, football players that come over and read with the kids. We have the softball team came over and worked with some of our fifth grade kids. Volleyball team came over. So we have lots of the teams that come over and help out, whether they're working on fact fluency with our kiddos or reading with our kiddos. They're a very positive influence in our school. We've continued to have youth friends and Walmart employees, and our Exchange City Career Fair brings in lots of community members to help out with that. Our PTA Insight Council continued throughout the year. Our PTA struggled, like I had said earlier, with attendance. So what they're looking, actually, the PTA sent out a survey as to, gosh, is this even going to continue? Because we were struggling with volunteers and nobody was stepping up to take over exec board. And the surveys came back overwhelmingly. They definitely think PTA is important, but they can't participate. So we did surprisingly have, when we had said, okay, this is our PTA meeting, we need to have an exec board, all of a sudden lots of people showed up. we were thrilled. So we have an exec board for next year, but we've decided to look possibly a little differently, not expecting people to come and not getting upset if people don't come, but having essentially an exec board meeting. And if you'd like to come, you're more than welcome, but we're not going to get upset if they don't. We had a lot of people say, I am happy to help out with donations or with coming to an event, but it's just hard for them to get there monthly for PTA meetings. Family fun nights have continued and have been very successful. We're very successful this year. They usually are. Anytime you involve having the kids with them and doing an activity with them and food, they are definitely attended. We appreciate the support from area groups that have given us Optimist Club and Kiwanis that we have used for either watchdogs and Optimist goes towards our family fun nights and providing the food that brings people in. This year, we also had a Sonic Pepsi grant. We have some members of one of our fifth graders, her grandparents own Sonic, and they were able to receive a Pepsi grant and wondered if we could use that. We said, absolutely. And so that actually helped pay a portion of our day at the K for our kids. So our kids did not have to pay a large amount for those tickets. It was unfortunate that the weather did not cooperate on that day, but we had, I love when our teachers come back and say, you should see the kids' faces when they see that stadium. There's a lot of kids that if we weren't able to do Day at the K would not have that kind of experience. So it's always a very positive experience for them. This year, we also participated in the structuring of the MTSSC I3T model for behavior, which is essentially a positive behavior support structure. And we felt like we were actually kind of ahead of the game, which was awesome. A lot of what we've already done with CHAMPS and some of the things that we have had already had as far as like our discipline plan and our reactive plan, we already kind of had in place. But the great thing that we did this year through this structuring is to align our district documents. So as a district now, as all 3 elementary schools, we have the exact same plans. As a district, we have the exact same major and minor behavior definitions. So that has been a real positive piece that has come out of this structure or this model. Now, next year, we will focus a lot more on those interventions that we can do with those kiddos who are struggling with behavior. Our challenges we had a significant decrease in overall office referrals. The BEST program has been a huge benefit for Garfield. I can't even tell you how the difference in how often I was able to get in the classroom for instruction, to watch instruction, versus from last year, because I wasn't having to deal with some of the significant behaviors that we had. That's huge. So I very am much appreciative of the BEST program and the people that are involved in that for our kiddos. We do still see a need for a tiered level of BEST. We have the kids that are there pretty significant have some pretty significant challenges. We do have other kiddos that could possibly use a BEST type program that would be a shorter time that they may have to be a part of that, so they can have some behavior training, but then be able to transition, or possibly a portion of their day is transitioned into the regular classroom. So we definitely do see a need for that. But I have to commend our SPED staff, is absolutely amazing at Garfield, and they do a fabulous job of working together to do what's best for our building and all of our students. Attendance overall is high. We still have habitual absences, which is very frustrating. It's frustrating as even when you're talking with parents to help them understand it is important. Yes, kindergarten, it is important for them to be at school. It's important for them to develop the habit that they must go to school every single day. It's not an option unless you're throwing up or have a fever. And so I had many conversations this year with kindergarten parents about bring them in their pajamas. We will dress them. And they're, really? Yes. And you really only have to do that one time, and they will not fight you again on getting into the car. So that's just a few people that struggle with getting their kids to school on time.
Have anybody take you up on the pajamas thing?
Not this year. Last year I did. Oh, yeah. I actually did it with my own son. He got ready on the way to school. Yeah, so it really does work. The continual pursuit for increasing academic achievement, we just continually need to help our teachers understand how to work smarter and not harder. Keeping our kids motivated during testing to show true growth. That is the map, where we like to see our growth, but the way the window opens, you really have to get the majority of the state assessments in before you give map. So we try to give like a week in between there, but it is really, I mean, some of those kiddos, they just struggle with that amount of testing. But the map is where we want to try to keep our kids motivated at this point until our state testing gets a little bit more refined. Or reliable, yeah, refined and reliable. Our space, with our group spaces and intervention space, we've done much better this year with our art room, being able to be back in the art room. That has helped because that opens up that art room when she's not there for us to be able to use that as group space and intervention space. But we obviously still see that as a need and continued need of our safety and front entrance, and that hopefully will be taken care of very soon. That's exciting. Our improvements to our existing programs, we're continuing with our kindergarten orientation. That's been very successful. A way to really develop kindergarten classes that are much more successful by getting to know those kids first before we put them into classes. Streamlining our documentation for our student improvement teams, continuing with the behavior MTSS and refinement of our reading MTSS. The use of all of our academic data in order to make the right choices that we need to instructionally for our students. Our counselor this past year, having our counselor in the specials rotation, having those kids have really a 50-minute counseling time to develop those social skills, and then to also be able to, our counselor would send out messages to the entire staff on how they could support those social skills throughout the year, or throughout the week, so that everybody's kind of talking that same language. We had the implementation of iMath, which so far has been very positive. And then next year, we'll have the implementation of our social studies standards. We'll be looking more closely at our writing and getting our writing to a 45-minute writing block, if at all possible. And then, of course, the biggest challenge is going to be change of leadership. Anytime you have change of leadership, you have nervousness. What I have talked and will continue to, before I leave, talk with my leadership team that when I came, they were a different type of leadership team. And our teachers I felt, they weren't empowered as leaders, and they are now. I think, so if they continue the strong work that they're doing, it's not about the new leadership telling them what to do. It's about them saying, here's what Garfield needs, here's what's great about Garfield, and here's what Garfield needs. So I think that'll make that transition even easier. And here's our cuties. Those are our kindergartners, and they have really just are the light of the future, and hope to see that, as graduation rates are trying to continue to increase at the high school, that every single one of those kiddos will graduate from high school when they get up into OHS. So any questions?
I know the map testing is an issue because of that window. Is there, I don't know, that's for Jeannie maybe too, to help me answer this. Is there any way that some of that can be switched around, since we do put such an emphasis on the map testing? And I know the kids are dead by the time we give the map.
Well, we actually did do our math performance originally had it scheduled after map because the math performance this year was not counting. But you also want to give them the opportunity for the instruction that they are receiving before you test that map to see that true growth. So it's kind of.
They're so tired of
Yes.
testing.
I know.
Yeah.
And
So
it's,
tired.
it is such a challenge. The MAP offers a couple of different choices. You can do fall to fall. You can do a fall, winter, and spring, which is way too much. Or you can do spring to spring. And whatever you choose, it's the same amount of testing, And so we've done spring to spring for, I'm not sure how many years.
Well, we actually did, elementary's done fall and spring.
Fall and
Just
spring.
because we can use that as our guide to show how the growth has happened from fall to spring. When you do spring to spring, then you have 2 teachers involved there. So the fall to spring does help for us to be able to also pinpoint certain grade level areas that are in need of improvement.
Well, I think my concern is that I think because they're so tired of taking tests by the time they take MAP, you don't get a true representation of their growth.
Well, that's true, yeah.
The challenge is we get more information, more usable information from the MAP than we'll ever get from state assessment.
Absolutely.
But we don't have that choice to
I
not do
know.
state assessment. So that's really the
That's the
challenging
problem.
thing. You know, and it's almost impossible, or at least we haven't figured out how to do it with elementary, but you know, on the 28th of April, the high school told their kids, you have to come to school today. You have a half a day of school. Everybody's going to take a test. It's going to be a 4-hour test, and you're done and you can go home. And so ninth graders, let me see if I have this right. Ninth graders took the Aspire, right?
Yes.
10th graders took the state assessment.
Yep.
11th graders took the ACT, and 12th graders took the work keys. And that day, out of 721 kids, 12 students were absent. Only 12. So they took it seriously, and they were told not to bring a phone. We found 2 phones. And they worked really hard. They were in, and they took all of the assessments that they had to take, and they were done, and they went home. And research would back that up, that, you know, they they had to really concentrate for those 4 hours. They could do it because they didn't have anything else. And that's part of this issue, is that there's a little piece of testing, and then they still have to do all this other stuff. And if there were a way where we could, but you can't really do it with little kids.
And they just don't have they don't have the stamina to be able to handle the 4 hours.
Exactly.
However, we have talked about, because we've tried to stay away from Mondays because they kind of are hard, sleepy, and we've tried to stay away from Fridays because they're a little, and we've tried to stay away from the afternoon. Well, we kind of talked about, you know, maybe we need to just be looking at, we just test maybe a couple of days, full days, but we take those brain breaks and give them, because research will say if you do 20 minutes of exercise before testing, that really helps immensely. So if we just plan our day that way, we maybe would have less instruction days affected. So that's something that we're going to look at too.
Remember from the dark ages that we took the old Iowa basics
Yeah.
test all in one day.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
maybe it was in 2 days.
It was a couple, 2 or 3 days.
But it was long.
Pretty,
But
it
it
was
was
long.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that the MAP
I know.
test is really important. It
It
gives
is.
us valuable information.
Yes, it does.
And they're so tired. What do you see as a tiered situation for best program? How would you like to see that tiered?
Well, I think that you have some kiddos who are, it's, the time before they would be into a general ed classroom is going to be extended. So it almost, once the new school is built, I would say ideally, the second tier, if you will, would be in the building, in the school itself, because that way it makes it very easy to make those transitions, that certain classes they're able to go into. If they're struggling, then they have their best classroom to go into to help with the behaviors and learn review that corrective teaching. That's ideal. If you have 2 different buildings, then I think what you look at it is, it would be, in an ideal world, have 2 rooms, where you have one that's more the tier 3, those kids who are, it's a long ways before they're going to be able to transition into the general ed classroom. And then you have another room of kiddos who they may only be there a certain amount of time before they, or like I said, they may already be transitioning. They just need during some of their instruction time. Typically, you find it's during that instruction time, the highly preferred times, like specials or lunch or recess, or possibly computers or writing. Writing is typically difficult for kids, so that's when you see a lot of increased behaviors.
So, and also with the counselors as part of the rotation, as part of the specials rotation, have they had time to do any type of individual work with children that
Yeah,
need it?
they've still had, at Garfield, the way our schedule works, she still had all day on Tuesdays and the half day on Wednesdays, the way it was worked out with our special schedule to be able to do small groups and meet with kids individually. Next year, we've changed that schedule also to allow more opportunities for our counselors to be able to see kids and to be able to help with the MTSS tiered interventions for that, because they will not be they will be part of the rotation, specials rotation, but it will look a little different. So they'll have more opportunities.
Thank you.
How many Garfield kids come to school with phones in their pocket?
We're getting more now than, like, a lot of our fifth graders, a few of our fourth graders, and a couple of third grade.
I'm just curious.
But they can't, they know that it gets to spend the day at Mrs. Ormington's desk if we have it out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
Dr. Stroh's taken mine away a couple of times. Anyhow, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jason Circle, what can you tell us about the summer adventure program? It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, that's what we need to hear.
It's
Come on up.
adventurous.
It's gonna be
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address the board. We're in the fourth of a fifth-year cycle with a 21st Century Community Learning Center grant for our after-school program, and occasionally supplemental grant opportunities are presented to us. 2 years ago, we got one of the few grants that were offered, and we ran our first Summer Adventures program. And we ran it for 8 weeks, found out the end of July is just too darn hot to put kids on a bus and think they're going to have a fun time on a field trip. So we applied for a little bit different program this year. This year we applied for a 6-week program, and it's 3 half-days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are half-days from 9 to 1. Thursdays are full-day field trips, and we'll go to Kansas City. We'll be in Missouri, everything from big cat animal rescue centers to Science City Planetarium, and everything in between. Mondays, we call it Take It Outside Monday, and we head out to Timberlake Camp. The kids get to hike, they get to fish, do archery, canoe. It's just a wonderful experience for these kids. A lot of them have not had any type of outdoor experience like that, and for them to gain new skills and new confidence levels is a really great thing for us. Tuesday is Try Everything Tuesday. We do everything from science, tech, arts and crafts. I have both our band and vocal music teachers on board this year so that the kids can have an informed decision made when they show up for 6th grade. Along those same lines, our target audience, we are looking to have 60 kids in the program per day. 45 of those will be incoming 6th grade students, and 15 will be current after-school program participants that will serve as mentors, which I'm really excited about because those kids are going to have an opportunity to really ease the transition for those 6th graders so that middle school is not this big scary beast where you get locked in your lockers and get swirlies.
That happens.
So the program on Wednesdays are physical activities. Get up, move around, lots of different games, everything from large group games down to individual skill building. One of the activities that we're going to bring in is called Balavizics, which is a great activity for eye-hand coordination, confidence, teamwork, auditory processing. And it's one of those things that the kids can go, I didn't know I could juggle off the ground. I didn't know I could juggle 6 balls with a partner. And just to see them take that step. We've also found that Balavizics helps out a lot of kids that have some hyperactivity. And so we'll put them on a balance board and have them do some of the rhythmic movements and the hand juggling and things like that. And we found that some of those kiddos kind of need that balance board in the classroom, and it helps us identify ways to meet their needs. And then we've also partnered with ECAN's Summer Lunch Bunch. And we're going to bus our kids over every day at 11:45, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so that every participant receives a hot lunch. The 21st Century grants no longer cover meals the way they did 2 years ago if you are in the building full day, but on field trips they will cover meals. So our Thursday lunches will be provided by Mid-American Nutrition, and they'll be sack lunches delivered to us. And a few of the things that we really hope to address this summer: we want kids to have fun, and we're going to sneak learning in while they're having fun. We have a tremendous asset in a lady named Debbie Venable that we contacted and met a few years ago through conferences, who is a tremendous science guru. She brings her version of CSI, and she does a family night where she sets up 36 different activities, and kids learn how to identify tire tracks, how to identify lip prints on a glass, or check their own DNA. And when we've done this in the past, one of the highlights is the fact that initially everyone's in the bleachers watching her set up. And when we invite them down, you'll have 3 or 4 that hang back into the bleachers and tell, "Come on, Dad, come on, Grandpa, let's go." And before you know it, the entire room is fully engaged. And it's a great night. It's a huge mess. But one of the things that we also strive to work with our kids on is proper behavior management. Okay, guys, we made the mess. We're going to clean it up. So we have been recommended for funding. Tomorrow, the Kansas State Board of Education will vote to approve. Our total grant amount is $71,734. And I'd like your blessing to accept that. And if we receive this, just a little exciting note on the side, this will bring our total to $504,000 in grant money that we've brought into 290 in the last 4 years.
Great program.
It is a great program.
Now Linda would like to attend. Can
No,
she go on the
I've
field day?
I've already told him I'm not going to power play. Not gonna happen.
All right. But it's an amazing buffet. That's what they call it. So,
Any questions? All right, well, thank you, sir.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Let's see, where are we? Board reports. Anybody's been a participant in that they need to report to the rest of the board? We sure miss Marge on those. We'll move on. One thing I guess we should do here at board reports, I don't want the entire audience to leave, but let's recognize David White, since
Oh, you don't have to.
I think he was intentionally trying to avoid this, but I want to get his
I
picture.
was watching my daughter play soccer.
No, yeah, right. Let's get your picture.
You don't need my picture.
Right there.
Yeah. David's been a member of this board for 4 years, and we've actually got quite a bit done in 4 years. And David's been a big part of that. He's a little bit like Dennis. He demands that we make progress. So, in recognition of your dedication to the community, our award. Thank you, sir. And she said be sure to get the box. It might have something.
Oh, yours.
No, we're a wrap.
We're wrapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got right.
Okay. Moving on to business, 7.01. Adopt resolution number 52.
You don't have to read the entire resolution. You just need to read the number in the first little part of it.
Great. That's the best news I've heard all day.
How far does it have to go?
Just the resolution 52.
So all I have to do is, I move that we adopt resolution 52. There you go.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to pass the resolution 52 regarding the state of Kansas municipal investment pool. Any questions or comments? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, passes 5-0. Thank you. And then we're skipping down to 7.06. And I believe we have some folks here from DLR, is that right?
Yes, we have Amber Beverly. When she and I visited last week, I asked her to come just to answer any questions that you might have. As you know, Kevin Grusher was here a few weeks ago and talked about the various models of construction management delivery. And then I visited with, my gosh, I don't know how many superintendents and operations managers that I know in Kansas, and my good friend David Flowers, who's superintendent in West Fargo, North Dakota. So, and I've talked a number of times to Kevin and Amber, but I just wanted an expert to be here if you had any questions with regards to my recommendation, which is construction management at risk. So you can ask her. I'm not an expert.
Well, I contacted my personal private expert, which is my son, who works for Black & Veatch, and does this exact same thing, and he felt that construction management at risk would be a good way for us to go. And I shared that with Jeannie, what
I
he
appreciate
wrote
that.
back to me.
So are we looking for an official motion to release the RFQ?
Yes. We actually need two separate motions and votes. One is to go with construction management at risk. You're selecting that as the delivery model, and then the second one, 7.01, which is to send out an RFQ. And Dennis, I added a number 9, 10, and 11, and 12 after getting your email today, and I just plugged that in. So we'll add that onto the RFQ because I think those are important qualities to ask for. So we need two separate ones.
So before we vote, would you give us the advantage of the at-risk over the agency?
Yes. So, in a nutshell, at risk, they have skin in the game. They are giving a GMP, so gross maximum price, for what all the projects are going to cost, and they're also working with us throughout the process. And then they'll hold all the contracts with all of those subcontractors. So you're not in, as opposed to in an agency situation, they're kind of a broker, and you're holding all of the contracts. So you're doing a lot more paperwork, and you're managing those contracts and those relationships with all of those subcontractors, which is a lot of extra work that you probably don't want to do.
That would be me.
Yeah, wouldn't be me.
And so just to clarify on the timeline too, so you have an RFQ that goes out, and that's a notice that we put out to let all the companies know that we're interested in start getting this SCM signed up. And then after that, we kind of go down in different steps in a selection process, and then there'll eventually be an RFP that gets put out where they submit more information about themselves, and then an interview process. So it kind of just keeps whittling down, and the whole entire thing takes about 8 weeks. So it's not a slow process, but it's governed by state statutes. So we have to be very careful that we're doing everything in the way that the state of Kansas asks us to. So.
Anybody else have questions, concerns, discussion?
Okay, this is sort of like a parent going into an IEP meeting where teachers use all this stuff that the parents don't understand what this means, and so I'm kind of feeling that way here.
Okay.
When we talk about construction manager, is that someone we hire?
For us.
That works for us?
In the same way you've hired DLR Group to design your buildings, you will hire this construction manager to build your buildings.
And that's up to us to hire that person?
Right.
Okay.
But let's clarify that. They're still acting in a way like the general on the job.
Absolutely.
Which does not meet the criteria that I would like to have as an owner representative to look after the construction manager. Nothing against the company that's here tonight. We need to have an eye set on him and you to make sure that our interests are being taken care of. So when we talk about hiring them for us, I still strongly believe we need an owner's representative representing us to watch the construction manager, because they're still acting in a way, holding all the contracts as a general contractor.
Absolutely. We see that in a lot of districts. They'll have a person, whether it's on staff or contract position, that is our point of contract, the contractor's point of contract, that kind of funneling person that makes all the contacts for us and helps those decisions
And that will be
go.
after I'm off the board, but I'd highly recommend that from the past experience we had
Yeah,
in this district.
definitely.
And looking at the fact, nothing against construction management at risk or any construction management company, whether it's this company or anybody else, it's a good idea to have that activity on our side.
Basically, you're just saying this is another set of eyes on the
That has
project.
construction experience, that
construction
actually is looking from our eyes,
Right.
not the construction manager's
Right.
eyes, which
Right.
sometimes, depending on the situation, could be a little clouded still. Even though we're hiring them, it still could be clouded.
Is there,
And, yeah.
is there a way to make sure that they haven't got like part ownership in people that we hire, companies that we hire? I mean, isn't that like unethical?
What brings that question up?
I can't imagine,
No, no.
but,
I think the questions that I had was, I asked for a list of all the
Right.
building projects, both in schools, healthcare, and other construction management at risk, and a list, and I don't have my email in front of me.
I put it up
Did you-
on the RFQ part, so if you want to scroll down to that a little bit. Because these do kind of go, no, see, nope. Sorry. Just go right there, stop. Okay, so, there we go. This is the list that Dennis sent me earlier.
Making it bigger, sorry.
Yeah.
That
So we can look at that, and we also need, when we get to the contract, is Susan add the fact that we want all disclosures, because under construction and management, even at risk, that company can bid on the project. So if they are bidding on the project, we want full disclosure of that.
Absolutely.
And something else I want to point out, and these, I think, are some documents, Jeannie, you may have to share if you want to. So, 2 different times you will have matrices that you can use, and you make them up completely yourself. So if you have past experience or concern that you really want addressed, you add that to your matrix, and that's something that you can grade all the construction companies on equally across the board.
Which
So-
is part of that statute that we have
Yes,
to follow.
yes.
So it's a really lockstep process.
Yes.
And so what we're asking tonight is approval to go with construction management at risk. And then a second motion later on to go with, to send out an RFQ tomorrow with these qualifications, with the additions. And then as we're going through this process, then the board will have discussions about owner representatives and what qualifications, because that's a very different set of qualifications and expectations than this. Construction management is really governed in many steps and time limits by the state statute that I also posted on board docs. So this is, I think, the next process we need to get started, and then we can certainly go into the owner rep piece, because that is critical. The districts that I talked with all had district representative that they paid, owner representative.
And they will make their money up as well.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, they'll save enough to pay their salary.
With both pieces. Those are 2 very critical money-saving, and your quality is much better. The product is much better because you don't have many different pieces of trying to put it all together.
So I would entertain a motion regarding construction delivery method. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to go for construction management at risk.
At risk?
Second.
It's been moved and saying that we use construction manager at risk method. Any further discussion?
Providing we have an owner rep.
Right, yeah.
You can do that at a later time,
Okay.
which is what I might suggest, and separate them out. I just don't want to mess up with this statute.
We won't add it to this one, but I'll come back and haunt you and come and do the public meeting if you don't hire one.
Yeah.
We're changing our policy for public speaking. Did you know that, Dennis?
Really? It's only 3 minutes.
There's been a motion made that we use a construction manager at risk form. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. Next motion. regards to,
An RFQ.
Motion to approve the
RFQ.
RFQ to start the process for risk management at risk with the added changes from.
Second.
been moved and seconded that we put forth the RFQ as presented with the additions. Any further discussion, questions? If not, all those in favor raise your right hand. Passes 5-0. And, do you have another one?
That's
No?
it.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Sure, thank
Thanks for
you.
coming down.
Sure.
You got to sit through some really good stuff tonight.
These are always great meetings.
We had a presentation, if you remember, regards to building handbooks last time. I guess has gone viral on the internet. The film of it is just, people are just absolutely captivated by that.
So, Mr. President, are you asking to move this along so we don't see the viral video? Or motion to approve the
Yeah,
handbooks as presented
Hey, now
at the
you're
last
talking.
viral video meeting?
Now you're talking. There's been a
Second.
motion to approve the change of the amendments to the handbooks and technology policy and seconded. Any further discussion?
Oh, please, let's vote yes quick.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. It passes 5-0. 7.09.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask you the privilege. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I talked to Dr. Stroh about a person who's helped us immensely to get the bond issue passed. But this journey for this individual started many years ago. And I want to say one thing: behind every great man is a great woman, which is Lucille Spencer. I got the privilege of meeting her first in September of 1985. And with that introduction as a team member that I got to work with several years, I believe, and I might be wrong, Ron, is I believe I got an invitation to become an optimist that first week. I don't know if it was that first week or the second week, but I got invited. And I've known Ron since 1985, and his service for youth in this community is above and beyond anything you could expect out of any one person. And on this journey, I've got to see Ron teach me several things about supporting your community and youth. And as we look at the journey, Bill, we started 12 years ago. We had the bump in the road wanting to get equality, and Marge Stevens, you mentioned Marge, she wanted equality of all of our elementaries to make sure all kids are studying in the same environment with the same standards for help me out, when everything's equitable and
Yeah.
fidelity for educational systems.
Yep.
And we had some bumps on the road. And we've had some bumps on the road in this community about remembering things of the past. And one thing that Ron has always exhibited when he stepped up this time is, let me get the quote right, because living as an optimist, he has exhibited every one of these, and I want to highlight 3 of these. Is one of the things that an optimist believes in is to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future. We got almost there several times, but this time we finally crossed the finish line with Ron's help. And then we want to look at the fact that with Ron, you always want to think of the best, to work only for the best, and expect only the best. So when he started this project to step up, he not only looked at the fact that we're completing the equity with our elementary schools, we're completing the security for all of our schools. We're setting the tone to complete the commitment to career technical education, which you've been a part of in this community for as long as I've known you, and for years. You're a great example, Ron. And we also recognize the fact that we need math, we need science improvements, and he also recognized the fact, the importance of a performing arts center to make it a whole for our community experience in our high school. So not every kid starts on a basketball team or plays baseball. They do art, they do vocal music, they do band. And we've accomplished something great in this community. And so when I look at Ron, he always looks at the sunny side of everything, and the optimism come true. And without Ron's help, I would like to make a motion to name a portion of the Ottawa High School Career Technical Education Facility in the name of Ron Spencer, because as a person that we want to show as a leader to our community, our leader for our kids to grow up to be, we would like everyone with Ron's leadership to be a Ron Spencer when they grow up, because you've got to sacrifice today for the future of our community. Ron, I want to say thank you as a friend, and that without you, we couldn't get across this finish line. Thank you, Ron.
I'd like to second that, but I'd like to make one friendly amendment if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to see the entire Career and Tech Ed Center be named the Ron Spencer Center.
So you'd like it the Ottawa High School Ron Spencer Career Tech Education?
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to the doctor. It was open on the suggestion. It'd be the pleasure of the board.
Well, I was hoping we'd get a big corporate donation to help pay for part of that, so.
Ron, what do you say? How much?
If American Eagle throws $2 million at us, gosh dang.
And I'll leave that up to future board, but I would like, as one of the last things I get to do as a board member, honor a friend, a teacher, a mentor, a person that sets an example for this whole community. And without Ron Spencer, we wouldn't be here today.
Agreed. It's been moved and seconded to name part or maybe all of the CTEC building after Ron Spencer. Any other discussion? There you go. I tell you, 2 years ago, I
Can we vote on it?
Yeah,
Or are
we're
we
going to
gonna
vote in a
go
second.
along?
We're going to vote in a second.
Good.
2 years ago, I looked at this process we were starting, and I thought, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think Ron Spencer was going to be the guy that led us to get there. But a leader is somebody that knows the way, that shows the way, and then goes the way. And you did all three of those things, and I couldn't be more tickled to have this honor tonight for you. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Oh, we're going to do a roll call.
Oh, yeah, all righty. So, Mr. George, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
All right.
And great thanks to Mr. Spencer.
Mrs.
And
Alderman?
Lucille as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes. This was absolutely almost a miracle that a bond issue got passed on the first time, and that's because of Ron's hard work.
Mr. White?
Absolutely, without a doubt, yes.
Ms. Ward?
Yes, with our humble thanks for all you've done.
And Mr. Gallagher also votes yes. It is 5-0 unanimous. Thank you again.
Before we leave, can we come together as a group and get a picture with Ron and Lucille together as a board so we can maybe
Okay.
have the professional photographer do that for us?
Right after we adjourn. Thank you so much. I don't think we need executive sessions.
Nope.
You were sent a personnel report.
I'd move to approve the personnel report as sent.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the personnel report. All those in favor, raise your right hand. That has passed again, 5-0. Announcements.
I do have some announcements. Depending on if we can get our bond sales going in the next few days, if you would put on your calendar to have a special board meeting at 6 p.m. on May 19th, if that will work for everybody. Dennis, will that work for you, 6 p.m.? Okay. Here in this room, again, on May 19th. We will send out notification of that on Thursday. It's possible that we won't have that meeting if we're still waiting for better markets. We have 8th grade promotion on Wednesday, 7 o'clock at Ottawa Middle School. Looking forward to that. How many do we have being promoted? Do you know off the top of your head?
2 whites.
That's racist.
No, it is not. Their last name happened to be White.
Oh, there.
And one of them is very, very dark.
Around 200.
About 180. Okay, very good.
45, you want us there?
Yeah, in the office, yeah. And then we have 5th grade promotion at Eugene Field, 2 o'clock on Wednesday, 2:15 at Lincoln on Wednesday, and Thursday at 10:30 at Garfield. And then we will honor our secondary teacher of the year and Dr. Cobbs at the high school luncheon on Friday. I think it's, I don't know what time it is, probably 11:30. I'll get with Dr. Cobbs and let him know. So Thursday, last day of school, half day of school, no lunch.
And Joint City County.
On the
Is
20th.
next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any other announcements? If not, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. That we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand and move to the front for a photo. Thank you.
Will you be able to be at the luncheon?